The light pulsed, a vibrant cascade of color and sound stretching across 3 light-years in an instant. It was beautiful. It was also, according to the Cathar, an abomination, and they blamed us, the humans, for inventing it. Ambassador Kalar's multiple eyes, set on stalks, swiveled independently. Each eye focused on a different part of the colossal, shimmering energy construct. The construct was now expanding through a sector of space previously considered a void. Its complex patterns shifted and reformed, pulsing to an unheard rhythm. A low, guttural chittering escaped Kalar's throat. It was a sound of deep, profound confusion. His 6-limbed body, usually held with perfect, rigid posture, seemed to sag. The protocols, Kalar vocalized, his voice a series of precise clicks and resonant hums, translated perfectly by the universal translator hanging near his primary sensor cluster. They were given to you for efficiency, for perfect logical progression, not for this. His primary eye swiveled to Evelyn Reed, a human liaison. She stood beside him on the observation deck. Evelyn, or Evie as her friends called her, offered a small, apologetic smile. She adjusted the collar of her standard-issue Alliance uniform. The sterile white of the Cathar Command Center, with its smooth, polished chrome and silent, gliding servitors, felt cold against her skin. Ambassador, with all due respect, we followed the protocols exactly, Evie said. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. She felt a tremor of excitement deep in her stomach. It was like the first time she had seen a true aurora borealis from orbit. We applied them to a new kind of energy propagation, a large-scale projection. Kalar's stalks wove slowly. A new kind of energy propagation for what purpose? What utility does this massive, energy-consuming, purposeless light show serve? His tone sharpened on the word purposeless. It is art, Evie replied. She paused, letting the word hang in the crisp Cathar air. It is art, Ambassador. Kalar's body twitched, a subtle gesture of incomprehension. The Cathar, a civilization built on millennia of pure logic and extreme efficiency, had invited humanity into their galactic exchange program. They saw promise in humanity's rapid expansion. They also saw what they perceived as chaotic inefficiency. Their solution was to share their perfect protocol. These were a set of hyper-optimized methodologies for everything. From warp core construction to galactic diplomacy, every action had a precise, proven, efficient method. Humanity, with its boundless curiosity and a knack for finding the unexpected, had embraced the protocols. They had learned them fast. They had learned them well, then they had started to adapt them. The ambassador's primary eye fixed on Evie. Humanity has been with us for only 3 solar cycles, Kalar stated. His tone held a hint of exasperation. In that time, you have consumed 20% more energy resources than projected. You have initiated 523 unscheduled subspace transmissions. And now you have created this. He gestured with a multi-jointed limb towards the giant, shimmering light. Its colors now swirled into a nebula of deep blues and purples. It pulsed faster, like a gigantic, slow-beating heart. This art, as you call it, is propagating through a primary trade lane. It is interfering with 67 established sub-frequency relays. Evie's smile widened a fraction. Only 67, Ambassador. We were aiming for at least 150 by the end of the day cycle. She saw Kalar's stalks stiffen. His multi-jointed fingers clicked against the smooth console railing. You were aiming to disrupt interspecies commerce. Kalar's voice rose in pitch, a sign of rare Cathar agitation. No, Ambassador, Evie said gently. We were aiming for something beautiful. The protocols allowed us to manipulate hyper-frequency energy fields with unprecedented precision. We simply applied that precision to visual harmonics. We combined it with some of our own conceptual frameworks. She remembered the long, intense sessions with her team. They had taken Cathar energy propagation matrices designed for instantaneous data transfer across vast distances. They had stripped them down. They had rebuilt them. They had added layers of mathematical poetry. They had used algorithms meant for perfect material distribution in ship hulls to determine the flow of light. A quiet chime echoed through the bridge. A different Cathar approached, their movements even more precise and deliberate than Kalar's. This was Dr. Cyril, a Cathar xenolinguist and energy specialist. Her optical stalks were currently focused on a small data pad she held. Ambassador, Cyril's voice was softer, less resonant than Kalar's. Initial analyses of the human propagation event are complete. Kalar swiveled all his eyes to Cyril. And, he clicked, impatience clear in his tone. Cyril's primary eye twitched. It is as the human state's art. It has no discernible utility. Its energy consumption is significant, however. Esiril paused. Evie watched her, sensing the subtle shift in the Cathar scientist's posture. However, the propagation method exhibits an unexpected property. The harmonic frequencies, while seemingly random to our standard analysis, are creating very minute but detectable ripples in the local gravimetric field. Ripples we have never observed before. Kalar's stalked eyes narrowed. Ripples of what consequence? Esiril adjusted her grip on the data pad, unknown. But the patterns of these ripples are not entirely chaotic. They possess a complex structure. A structure that, if it were not for its absolute lack of purpose, might be called elegant. Evie almost laughed. Elegant. The highest compliment a Cathar could give, but it was always reserved for solutions, for efficiency, for utility, never for something purposeless. Kalar emitted another, longer chitter. This changes nothing. Human, you must dismantle this. Art, immediately. The interference is unacceptable. The waste is illogical. Evie looked out at the vast, cosmic canvas. The FTL art installation, dubbed the Whisper Nebula by her team, shimmered brighter. It expanded almost playfully into the void. We can't just dismantle it, Ambassador, Evie said. It's designed to propagate naturally, like a biological signal, but through energy fields it will fade eventually. In approximately 427 solar cycles. Kalar's body froze. Then he turned slowly to Evie. 427 solar cycles, that is nearly 500 of your Earth years. His voice now held a distinct, high-pitched whine. This was the Cathar equivalent of yelling. It will continue to broadcast this nonsense, for 5 centuries. Evie nodded slowly. That was part of the aesthetic, a transient beauty but long-lasting. We believe art should endure. Kalar took a step back, his multiple limbs retracting slightly. He looked at Esiril, then back at Evie. This is beyond protocol. Evie just smiled. The Cathar exchange program had begun with such high hopes. Humans had arrived on the Cathar homeworld, Xylos, eager to learn. The Cathar had offered access to their vast knowledge. Their hyper-efficient starship designs, their flawless energy conduits, their perfectly optimized supply chains. Humans had soaked it all up. Evie remembered the initial training modules, endless lectures on optimal resource allocation, demonstrations of unified field manipulation for power generation. Every Cathar system was a marvel of logical design, a testament to efficiency. Evie herself had been assigned to the Applied Energy Protocols Division. Her background was in quantum field theory and holographic projection, with a deep personal interest in conceptual art. She had expected to be building new, efficient power grids, or designing faster, more stable warp drives. Instead, she had found herself staring at complex Cathar diagrams for subspace harmonics. These harmonics were meant to transmit encrypted data packets across light years with zero data loss. Her mind, however, saw something else entirely. She saw patterns, not just logical patterns but aesthetic ones, symmetries that could be beautiful, rhythms that could be felt, not just calculated. One of her first projects was to optimize the energy signature of the Cathar communications hub. The Cathar protocols dictated a flat, unvarying energy signature. It was designed for maximum signal-to-noise ratio. Zero interference. Evie found it boring. She had asked her Cathar supervisor, a stern, four-limbed being named Protocol Officer Zedax, if there was any flexibility. Flexibility? Zedax's voice had been a low, resonant hum of confusion. There is only the protocol, it is perfect. Evie had spent weeks perfecting the hub's energy signature. She used the Cathar protocols for precision. She ensured the signal would be strong and clear. But she also added a subtle, almost imperceptible modulation. A subfrequency ripple that to the human ear would have been a faint melodic hum, a silent song. Zedax had scanned the results. His optical stalks had twitched. The output efficiency is 100%. The signal clarity is optimal, he had clicked. Then his primary eye had swiveled to Evie. However, the auxiliary sensor readings indicate a tertiary harmonic. It is a very complex harmonic. It serves no purpose. Its presence is an anomaly. Explain. Evie had bitten her lip. It's a signature, like a unique watermark. It doesn't interfere, it just exists. Zedax had studied her for a long moment. Why would you create a signature that serves no purpose? He had asked, his voice a flat line of pure logic. Because it's beautiful, Evie had finally said. Zedax had only given a slow, deliberate chitter. He filed the report as Human Aberration 1, Inefficient Aesthetic Signature. That report had been forwarded to Ambassador Kalar. Kalar had already been dealing with several other human aberrations. One human botanist, using Cathar nutrient synthesis protocols, had not only developed perfectly efficient food crops, but had also bred a new species of glow-in-the-dark flower that constantly changed color. It had no nutritional value, it had no medicinal properties, it was simply pretty. The Cathar considered it a waste of valuable synthesis material. Another human, a xenomusicologist, had taken Cathar soundwave manipulation protocols meant for precise seismic mapping. He had used them to compose symphonies that resonated through the planet's mantle. The Cathar found the constant, low thrumming of these symphonies distracting. They found it illogical. Back on the observation deck, Ambassador Kalar was still looking at the Whisper Nebula. Its colors were now so vibrant they seemed to hum in the silent observation chamber. Evie could almost feel the light on her skin. Dr. Cyril surprisingly had not left. She kept her data pad held high. Her primary eye was fixed on a complex diagram on the screen. It was a projection of the gravimetric ripples Evie's FTL art was creating. Ambassador, Cyril said, her voice unusually thoughtful, the ripple patterns are self-replicating, they are not decaying as predicted, instead they are forming fractal geometries. Kalar's stalks twitched again. Fractal geometries. What is a fractal geometry in a gravimetric field? Cyril adjusted one of her smaller optical stalks. It is a repeating pattern that is identical at every scale. It is highly complex. And it is not something we have ever observed in natural or artificial energy propagation. Evie felt a surge of triumph. See, it's not useless, it's doing something new, Kalar turned to Evie. It is doing something unexpected. That does not make it useful, it makes it unpredictable. Unpredictability is inefficient, it is dangerous. Evie shook her head. Sometimes, Ambassador, unpredictable things are the most interesting. Kalar let out a frustrated chitter. He gave Cyril a curt nod. Monitor these fractal geometries. Report any further anomalies. Human, he said, turning back to Evie, you will cease all such artistic endeavors until new parameters are established. Is that understood? Evie hesitated. She looked at the sprawling, beautiful nebula of light. It was her creation. It was the first time humanity had truly imprinted its abstract soul onto the cold, logical canvas of space, using tools meant for pure utility. Understood, Ambassador, she said, her voice carefully neutral, but her eyes held a spark of defiance. A few days later, Evie was in her small, cramped quarters on the Xylos research station. The station was a marvel of Cathar engineering. It was perfectly functional. It was also utterly devoid of personal touches. No decorations, no varying color schemes, just the same sterile white and chrome. Evie missed the messy, vibrant human living spaces. She missed the soft, worn fabric of her favorite chair. She missed the smell of brewing coffee. She was currently sketching on a small data slate using Cathar fractal algorithms. These algorithms were designed for optimal structural integrity in ship plating. She was applying them to create complex interwoven patterns of light, patterns that would never exist in a Cathar vessel. But they were beautiful. A soft knock sounded on her door. It was a Cathar knock, perfectly timed, precise in its rhythm. Evie sighed and opened it. Dr. Cyril stood outside. Her optical stalks were angled slightly down, a sign of curiosity or perhaps even humility among her kind. Human Evelyn, Cyril clicked. May I enter? Evie stepped aside. Of course, Doctor. Cyril entered. She moved with a strange, almost fluid grace despite her 6 limbs. Her multi-jointed fingers tapped lightly against the data slate Evie held. You are still creating these patterns. It was not a question. I find them relaxing, Evie admitted. A way to process thoughts. Cyril hummed softly. The gravimetric patterns from the Whisper Nebula are still propagating. They have now reached the outer rim of the Corvus Nebula. Our long-range sensors picked up an unusual resonance. A resonance that aligns with the specific fractal sequences your art is generating. Evie's eyes widened. What kind of resonance? Cyril's stalk shifted. Our long-range sensor network has detected a distortion. A localized, stable wormhole has appeared. It is very small. It is not natural. Its entry signature matches the precise frequency of your gravimetric ripples. Evie dropped her data slate. It clattered softly on the polished floor. A wormhole from our FTL art. Cyril twitched her optical stalks in affirmation. It appears so. Our calculations indicate the energy required to stabilize such a distortion would be immense. But the sustained, non-localized, purposeless energy emissions from your art have created a stable, though minute, singularity. It is leading to a star system previously unobservable by any known method. Evie felt a shiver run down her spine. A star system previously unobservable. This was huge. This was a discovery of unimaginable magnitude, all because she wanted to make something beautiful. Does Ambassador Kalar know? Evie asked, Esiral's primary eye fixed on her. He does. His primary response was to order immediate countermeasures for the accidental spatial anomaly. Evie winced. Accidental? Esiral's head tilted. Is it not an accident? You did not intend to create a wormhole, did you? Evie considered this. No, I didn't, but I intended to create a unique energy field. The wormhole is a consequence of that unique field. Esiral hummed again. A consequence. A byproduct of a purposeless pursuit. She tapped the data slate with a multi-jointed finger. This art of yours, you create it not for its utility but for its beauty, yet it has created something with profound utility. A pathway to a new star system. Evie picked up her data slate. Perhaps utility isn't always the first goal. Sometimes pursuing something just for its own sake, for its inherent value, can lead to unexpected utility. Esiral was silent for a long moment. Then she extended a multi-jointed limb. With surprising precision, she pointed a digit at Evie's data slate. This pattern here, the one that resembles a branching tree, could you amplify it? Adjust its internal harmonics to resonate with the wormhole's signature. Evie stared at her. You want me to make more wormholes? Esiral retracted her limb. I want you to explore the properties of this unexpected phenomenon. Using the Cathar protocols for precision, of course, but with your human, conceptual frameworks. Evie felt a thrill of excitement. This was it. This was the opening. A Cathar scientist, the epitome of logic, was asking her to use art to explore the fabric of spacetime. Over the next few weeks, Evie and Esiral worked together in secret. Or as secret as anything could be on a Cathar station. Evie's creative impulses merged with Esiral's meticulous scientific method. Evie designed new FTL art pieces, each more complex and aesthetically pleasing than the last. Esiral would analyze the resulting gravimetric ripples with increasing fascination. They discovered that specific color harmonies, when translated into energy frequencies using the Cathar protocols, created different types of spatial distortions. Certain rhythmic pulses, when applied to the energy flow, generated micro-wormholes that connected 2 points in space. These micro-wormholes were too small for anything to pass through, but they proved the concept. They were a testament to the unexpected power of useless pursuits. Ambassador Kalar, meanwhile, was growing increasingly frustrated. The Whisper Nebula continued its slow, graceful expansion. The Cathar High Council had sent several strongly worded communiques. They demanded an explanation for the spatial anomaly. They demanded the human aberrations cease. Kalar, for his part, was trying to enforce the rules. He held daily meetings with the human liaison team. He reiterated the importance of optimal resource allocation. He reviewed every single Cathar protocol module, ensuring humans were completing them to 100% efficiency. During one such review, Kalar focused on a human engineer named Ben Carter. Ben was responsible for calibrating the station's energy conduits. He had used Cathar protocols for perfect energy flow. Yet the energy readings for Ben's section consistently showed minor, almost imperceptible fluctuations. Engineer Carter, Kalar clicked, his optical stalks fixed on Ben. Your energy conduit efficiency is at 99.9998%. While acceptable, it is not 100%. The protocol states 100% efficiency. Explain the discrepancy. Ben shifted uncomfortably. He was a stocky man with a perpetual smudge of grease on his cheek. Well, Ambassador, I followed the protocols, but I also, added a little, Just a tiny frequency modulation makes the energy flow feel smoother. More organic. Kalar's stalks froze. Organic energy flow is not organic. It is a calculated trajectory of subatomic particles. It has no feeling, it has no sound. Ben shrugged. To a Cathar, maybe, to a human, a perfect flat hum is just dead. I added a little pulse, a beat almost. It makes working next to the conduits more pleasant. Kalar's multiple eyes swiveled. He let out a long, slow chitter. You intentionally introduced an inefficiency for pleasure? Ben nodded. Pretty much, and it's only 0.0002%, barely noticeable. Kalar leaned forward. Every inefficiency, no matter how small, has a cascading effect. It can lead to system failures, to resource depletion, to chaos. Ben held up his hands. Ambassador, I can promise you the conduit is running perfectly. The hum is just background noise, like a friendly purr, Kalar sighed, a sound he seemed to be making more and more often these days. Humanity, he hummed, your species is an enigma, you seek comfort in the unnecessary. You value aesthetics over utility. And yet, you are astonishingly effective at adapting our protocols. Later that day, Kalar received an urgent message from Dr. Esiril. Her tone was unusually excited. He followed her coordinates to a small, private Cathar research lab, one normally reserved for theoretical physics. When he entered, he found Evie Reed there. She stood beside Esiril, a triumphant look on her face. Esiril's optical stalks were practically vibrating. On a large holographic display, a star chart glowed. A small, bright point of light marked the new, previously unknown star system discovered by the Whisper Nebula. But now, a small, shimmering gateway, no larger than a human hand, floated in the center of the lab. It pulsed with a faint, iridescent light. It was connected by a thin, shimmering thread of energy to a small, intricate device. The device was made of Cathar components, but its shape was unlike anything Cathar had ever designed. It was elegant, it was beautiful, and it was generating the tiny, stable wormhole. Ambassador, Esiril clicked, her voice tight with suppressed excitement. Human Evelyn has managed to replicate the wormhole phenomenon on a micro scale. We can now generate stable, albeit tiny, interdimensional portals. And we can do so on demand. We used her artistic energy configurations. Kalar stared at the shimmering portal. His primary eye zoomed in on the device. It resembled a complex, multifaceted crystal. This is an FTL conduit, he clicked. His voice was hushed. Esiril nodded. It is a stable conduit to a previously inaccessible star system, a system that may hold unimaginable resources, or knowledge. All generated by a principle we previously dismissed as purposeless. Evie stepped forward. We found that by intentionally introducing certain inefficiencies into the Cathar energy matrices, patterns emerged. Patterns that allowed us to subtly bend spacetime. The Cathar protocols are so precise, so perfect, they only allow for the most direct, most efficient path. They don't allow for the little ripples. The little noise that we humans find beautiful. But that noise, it turns out, is what allows for completely new interactions with reality. Kalar slowly moved closer to the shimmering wormhole. He extended a multi-jointed limb. His fingertips almost touched the shimmering surface. You mean our perfect optimized protocols are limiting? Evie nodded. In a way, they're perfect for what they're designed for, but they don't explore the unexpected. They don't allow for the accidental discovery that comes from playing. From trying something just because it feels right, not because it's efficient. A long silence settled in the lab. Kalar stood there unmoving. He stared at the portal, then at the intricate device, then back at Evie. His stalks were perfectly still. This was an unprecedented moment for a Cathar to admit a flaw. To admit a limitation in their perfect protocol. Evie saw a flicker of something in his eyes. It wasn't confusion. It was contemplation. The Cathar High Council, Kalar finally clicked, his voice lower than usual. They will demand to know the origins of this technology. They will want to replicate it. They will want to understand it. Esiril spoke up. We have prepared a preliminary report, Ambassador. It details the process. It credits the human conceptual framework as the catalyst. Kalar emitted a deep, rumbling chitter. It was not a chitter of frustration this time. It was something else. A sound Evie had not heard from him before. A catalyst of purposelessness, Kalar hummed. How do you explain the utility of something born of no utility? Evie smiled. We call it discovery, Ambassador, and sometimes discovery happens when you're not looking for it. When you're just enjoying the journey. Kalar slowly turned to Evie, his primary eye fixed on her. Human Evelyn, you have taken our gift of perfect logic and you have twisted it into something illogical. And yet profoundly impactful. Evie bowed her head slightly. That's humanity for you, Ambassador. The news of the micro-wormhole generator spread through the Cathar scientific community like wildfire. Dr. Esiril became an overnight sensation. The Cathar High Council was initially furious. They demanded to know why their protocols had been misused. But the sheer, undeniable utility of the discovery outweighed their logical objections. Access to an entirely new star system, the potential for countless new resources. It was too great to ignore. A special Cathar scientific delegation was dispatched to investigate the Whisper Nebula. They analyzed its propagating energy fields. They studied the fractal gravimetric patterns. They even tried to replicate the conditions. But they found they couldn't. not without the human element, without the deliberate inefficiencies, without the artistic intent. Ambassador Kalar was called before the High Council. It was a somber affair. The council members, ancient and wise Cathar, sat in a vast, silent chamber. Their multiple eyes glowed with cold, calculating light. Kalar stood before them, his posture rigid. He reported on the Whisper Nebula. He reported on the micro-wormhole. He reported on the human conceptual frameworks. Ambassador Kalar, one of the council members, clicked, its voice deep and resonant. You state that this profound breakthrough, this FTL conduit, was born from a purposeless act, from art. Explain the logic of this. Kalar paused. He looked out at the assembled council. He thought of Evie's calm determination. He thought of Ben Carter's desire for a pleasant hum. He thought of the glow-in-the-dark flowers. Esteemed council, Kalar began, his voice surprisingly firm. The Cathar protocols are perfect. They are for achieving known goals with maximum efficiency. They allow us to walk the clearest path, but humanity does not always walk the clearest path. They wander, they deviate. They create for no logical reason. They pursue beauty. And sometimes in their wandering they stumble upon paths we, in our pursuit of perfect logic, never even considered existed. A ripple, almost imperceptible, went through the council. Kalar continued. Their inefficiencies are not inefficiencies in a traditional sense. They are deviations, small, calculated deviations from the perfectly efficient. These deviations create ripples in the fabric of reality. Ripples that our perfect, smooth logic would filter out as noise. But this noise, this art, this purposelessness sometimes creates a resonance that unlocks new possibilities. Possibilities that our structured methods could never achieve on their own. The council member clicked again. So you are suggesting our protocols are incomplete, Kalar straightened. I am suggesting they are perfectly complete for what they are designed to do. But perhaps there are areas where completeness limits discovery. Perhaps there are areas where a different approach, one that embraces the unexpected, is required. Evie, meanwhile, was now a minor celebrity among the human exchange students. Her small quarters were always filled with fellow artists, engineers, and philosophers. They were all buzzing with new ideas. One group was using Cathar material synthesis protocols to create self-assembling sculptures that morphed and changed based on ambient light. Another was applying Cathar temporal calculation matrices, meant for perfect planetary trajectory prediction, to compose music that could unfold differently depending on the listener's mood. They called it quantum sonatas. The Cathar scientific community, led by a now openly curious Dr. Esiril, had established a new research division. It was called the Applied Deviance Sector. Its sole purpose was to study the unintended consequences of human interaction with Cathar protocols. It was a place where logic met abstract thought. Esiril often came to Evie for consultations. She wanted to understand the human conceptual frameworks. This beauty concept, Esiril clicked one day in Evie's quarters. How do you quantify it? How do you measure its utility? Evie smiled. You don't, you feel it, you experience it. It's not about measurement, Esiril, it's about resonance. It's about the way something makes you feel or the way it makes you think. It expands your mind, not just your data banks. Esiril sat quietly for a long moment. Her optical stalks twitched as if processing a massive amount of unfamiliar data. So, the purpose of art is to expand the mind, to create new thought patterns, even if those patterns are not immediately useful for survival or resource acquisition. Evie nodded. Exactly, and sometimes those new thought patterns lead to something truly amazing, like a wormhole. Esiril let out a soft, almost wistful chitter. The Cathar have always sought to refine knowledge, to perfect it, to make it more efficient. We have never sought to expand it through aesthetic exploration. Evie knew the Cathar wouldn't suddenly become artists overnight. Their civilization was built on logic, but a crack had formed in their perfectly polished facade. A crack that allowed in a sliver of human chaos, human creativity. The Cathar began to grudgingly accept that sometimes the most purposeless pursuits could lead to the most profound discoveries. They began to allow for controlled deviations in their protocols. Small, sanctioned experiments where humans were encouraged to apply the Cathar's hyper-efficient methods to non-essential endeavors. They called them humanity protocols. They were still careful, they still worried about inefficiency. But the wormhole had opened their minds just as Evie's art had opened a path to a new star system. One day, Kalar visited Evie's quarters again. He stood in the doorway, his 6 limbs perfectly still. Human Evelyn, he clicked. The Cathar Council has authorized a new project. They call it the cosmic weave. Evie looked up from her data slate. She was sketching a new FTL art installation. This one was designed to pulse with the rhythmic ebb and flow of dark matter. Oh, and what is the cosmic weave? Evie asked. Kalar's primary eye fixed on her. It is a network of stable, FTL conduits, designed to link our star systems with the newly discovered star system, and it will be constructed using the principles you and Dr. Esiril developed. The principles of artistic energy propagation. Evie slowly put down her data slate. She felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was a feeling of vindication, of triumph. So you're going to build an FTL network with Art. Kalar's optical stalk shifted slightly. We are going to build an FTL network, and its energy signature will be unique. It will not be a flat, silent hum. It will have rhythm. He paused. The council also requested that a human oversee its design to ensure its aesthetic integrity. Evie stood up. She looked at Kalar, truly looked at him. She saw not just the rigid Cathar ambassador, but a being who had, in his own way, begun to understand. He might never create art himself. He might never fully grasp the human need for beauty's sake, but he understood its power. I would be honored, ambassador, Evie said. She offered him her hand. Kalar hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then slowly, carefully, his multi-jointed limb extended. His fingertips, rough and scaled, brushed against her skin. It was not a shake. It was a connection, a bridge between logic and emotion, between utility and beauty. Outside the Cathar station in the vast silent void, the Whisper Nebula continued its slow, graceful dance. Its colors shifted, its patterns pulsed. It was a beacon. Not just of light, but of humanity's unique, baffling, and utterly impactful ability to find purpose in the purposeless. To turn rigid logic into vibrant, living art. To change the universe, one beautiful, accidental ripple at a time. The Cathar learned that their perfect protocol was not just about what they could achieve, it was also about what they could inspire. And humanity, with its wild, unpredictable heart, was a universe of inspiration.